We're back. It's the I'm Not Your Lawyer show. Brought to you by Church of Lurk. If you believe in the Bitcoin and the immutability of the Bitcoin, then the Church of Lurk is for you. No dues, no tithing. All you got to do is believe. Church of Lurk, the only true immutable religion. I'm Jason, not your lawyer. I'm not. Could be. I might be. Some of you out there, I might be your lawyer. It could happen. Today we've got Paul Sztorc. Did I do it right?
You did.
Yes! Paul Sztorc is here. We've been talking about the Ethereum experiment. And the first thing that we really want to distinguish is the multiple parts of the Ethereum experience. There's two of them, right? Paul, what we talked about is that there's the portion of Ethereum that is the platform itself, the software, right? And I think what we agreed is that the software itself, not a security, but instead the software and the control of the software and the creation of the software and management of the software, etc., is all done by a managed and controlled group of people that have absolute management control of where Ethereum is going. Would you agree with that?
I think I would.
All right. So we have the Ethereum project itself as a separate entity that could be defined as an entity. And when we have an entity that exists, that means I got somebody that I can sue. It also means I got somebody I can represent, right? The court has to recognize that an organization exists. Now, here's one of the failings of the Ethereum project, I think, is that they actually failed to form before they started making representations about stuffs, right? They said, hey, we've made something, and I can picture it, right? 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody's in their underwear in the basement of their mom's house. They got a Mountain Dew, they got fucking Hot Pockets or Cheetos or whatever's going on. Somebody's sitting in the corner, a random person is sitting in the corner playing an Atari because they think it's cool, right? They're just there.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, there's this fucking brainstorm by someone and goes, holy shit, I could make an entire platform ecosystem off of the blockchain. Wouldn't that be cool? 2 hours later, bang, the code's done. The code's done. And now, at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're out on social network and they're selling it. I'm going to ICO. I'm going to be a billionaire. I had an idea and I don't have the patience because I don't have the work ethic to write out the years that it takes to build up a company the right way. So before I even have governance, before I even have any idea of what I'm doing, I'm already selling it on social media. And then what happens? Bang, you've just made yourself a target for the lawsuit. All on your own. But if you'd waited, if you'd said, I need to form an entity, I need governance, I need to form a corporation, I need to have bylaws, I need to do all that, then you put up what's called the corporate shield, this legal fiction that's this corporate shield that says you can't sue me as a person, but you can sue the corporation and its assets. See, that's what smart people do. That's
limited liability.
That's how Granddad did it when he wanted to fuck people over and not have his house taken from him, right?
Yeah.
You think Granddad's an old fucker,
so,
you know?
So what you're saying is because they were too slow in getting ETH Suisse up, now they're all not only is ETH Suisse screwed, but they're potentially screwed, is what you're saying. All right. I'm following you, yeah.
It's about steps, right? It's about processes, checklists. You do things in a certain order. Did they do it in that order?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Maybe some of them, it'll be very interesting to figure out, right? Because some of them, maybe yes, others no. I don't know.
Right? But at the very head of the pin, right? The very tip of the spear, we got Vitalik.
Yeah, but ultimately it comes down to what the DA chooses to do. Maybe that's not right, but that's what I kind of guess is.
Right.
And then it also comes down to if a jury just decides that they didn't care or something like that, right? Like it is kind of subjective. We try to make it as objective as possible, which we should do.
Right.
And that's
what we're doing
for everyone. But ultimately, at the end of the day, isn't there kind of a popularity shield that Vitalik can hide behind and say, look, I went big. I didn't just go. I went big. And, I'm international and I've got a lot of Twitter followers and this thing was public activity for years, and we're in London, and we're at Consensus 2016, shaking hands with. So like, how does this intersect with like the governor of Delaware wanting to make like a blockchain friendly state? Now, I'm 100% certain the governor of Delaware had no idea what he was talking about when he said this aloud at Consensus 2016, which is a big conference where there's a lot of Bitcoin Ethereum stuff. He had no idea what he was talking about. But this guy is a governor of Delaware, right? So does that make any difference when you're getting sued? Can you say, look, the governor of Delaware said this was fine?
No.
Whatever. Yeah.
No.
I see a normal. I would think yes, and I think most lay people.
No.
Yeah, well, why don't you explain it a little bit? It sort of seems like, because there are different branches of government, right? And it sort of seems like if one branch of government tells you that something's okay, it kind of messes it up a little bit for the other two. But you're saying that's not the case at all, or something else? I don't know.
Think of it this way. Oh, hold on.
Nope. Got a Doge.
Clover the Doge dog.
Warning you.
Pizza's here.
Oh.
Boy ordered pizza.
I was just thinking, like, today's a really good pizza day. I was just thinking that. I'm gonna go to New Haven. We have great pizza in New Haven.
Hold on a second. Rihanna's dancing in the doorway. I gotta. Anyway,
so yeah, we're
someone
talking, like,
coming out later and saying it's okay. Now here's how this works. All right, that might be a defense saying, look, that might have been illegal what I was doing before, but now, somebody says it's okay. So I really wasn't violating the law. No. You were violating the law. You just got away with it. And you knew it was you were violating the law, but you just got away with it. So the question is, then it becomes prosecutorial discretion. Do they go after that or not? All right.
That's what I think people would be really interested in. If you know anything about that, I mean, like, because it is confusing, right? Like,
let's talk about.
Like, some people can get away with the law if the DA just doesn't feel like going after them or something, right? Like, that seems like I think that sets off a lot of lights in people's heads, and they think like.
Well, a good example of that, right, is weed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. So you might be actually about to say what I'm going to say, but I remember in the Romney-Obama debates over 4 years ago, both of them admitted to smoking weed as children while it was super illegal. And, many people brought up, and I was thinking it at the time, that some people, they smoke weed when they're young.
It's happened. I inhaled. I can admit that.
Yeah. Right, yeah, and they're doomed, right? And they go to prison and their lives are destroyed. But for these two gentlemen, it was like laws don't apply to them or something. And we have that kind of feeling, I think.
So that's not really the route that I was going to go. Where I was going to go is you've got California, Oregon, Washington State, Colorado have all legalized recreational and medical marijuana, while medical marijuana and any marijuana at all still remains a Schedule I drug, which means it's a federal crime to sell it, use it, etc. Right? So you got this overarching supremacy clause, the federal law that says no bueno, you're in illegal fucktown. All right, but you got people openly doing it. And you had the Obama administration, the head executive officer over the agency of enforcement, that decides whether or not you're going to do that. Obama said, yeah, so long as you're not, like, blatantly out there being a dick, we're not going to prosecute you.
Yeah, it's like, you see, like, that's weird, though, right? Like, that goes against the entire spirit of having, like, the rule of law, right? You either have the rule of law or you don't. Or you have, like, if that guy told me it was okay.
We've got laws that are on the books that nobody gives a shit about anymore.
You can't even follow some of these laws, I think.
So,
it's so vague.
There's this old case called Connecticut v. Griswold, which goes along the whole Roe v. Wade line of cases. Okay? And you wouldn't have Roe v. Wade without Connecticut v. Griswold, and you wouldn't have Pennsylvania v. Casey. You wouldn't have any of these things if there wasn't some law on the books that people said, what the fuck? All right? Now, in Connecticut v. Griswold, which came after Roe v. Wade, Roe v. Wade decided that a woman had a right to privacy in her person, okay, and that the government couldn't really interfere with that. And then along came Connecticut v. Griswold. And there was this law in the books in Connecticut that said that a married woman and a married couple was not allowed to use contraception. So after the ruling of Roe v. Wade, this married woman walked into court and said, equal protection, 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
If a single woman has a right to privacy in her person, why doesn't a married woman? I get equal protection. This law that where you're saying that I can't use contraception is bullshit. And ultimately, and this is the thing that's like the decider, is the attorney for the woman said, hey, judge, how are you going to enforce the law? Right?
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to come into my bedroom mid-coitus and check?
Check that you put on in time.
Right? I mean, how are we going to enforce this law? And so there's this practicality of we have laws on the books, but how do we enforce them? So, the question then is selective enforcement. We have laws. A lot of laws are on the books for political reasons, but if you got this law that's on the books and it's really not being enforced, then it turns into what's called dead letter law. And people have heard that recently with the Trump administration, with the Logan Act and what was going on with General Flynn. So are the securities laws as applied to cryptocurrency, is it selective non-enforcement, right? So without it being announced to the cryptocurrency world, has the SEC or the CFTC or anyone else that's a regulatory agency decided to take this stance of, we're going to let you do it, but if you're a dick, we're going to nail you, right? Now, if the opportunity to do that would have been the Dow.
Oh, the opportunity to start being a dick, or
Yeah.
interpret that as being a dick, yeah.
Would have been the Dow, right? Or
Because here's the thing: is if you say it's allowed, which I have a new appreciation for this, but if you say it's allowed, people will keep pushing the envelope, and they will just keep, and it will get more and more ridiculous. And then finally, it will just become so ridiculous that it just can't agree with reality, and that was the Dow.
Yeah. And so, you give a mouse a cookie, they want a glass of milk. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what you have is less than a year after the Dow, people are still wondering, are they going to regulate this? And as the more days go by, the more folks that are looking to sell shitcoin after shitcoin and follow the Ethereum model are getting emboldened. And they're thinking, I can just do this all day long. And
okay, yes. And so you think they will find someone who's a good example, and they'll just crush that one person, leave everyone else alone, or maybe find them or something? Or what do you think? You have no idea at all?
It's a gamble, right? So what does that look like when that happens? So regulatory action generally happens with the administrative agency first. And when you're talking about securities laws, you're dealing in three areas. You've got the administrative, you've got the civil, and you've got the criminal. And the administrative action generally starts with a cease and desist letter or a phone call from the SEC or a state securities regulator that says, hey, we've opened a file on you. And we'd like you to stop doing what you're doing. And we'd like you to send us all of your documents related to any funds and any contact you've had with any person that you've taken their money from. And you're going, fuck, how am I going to do that? Because I just did this in my underwear in my basement while my cousin was playing Atari, right? I don't have an AML KYC program. I don't have a FinCEN registration. I didn't register with the SEC. I didn't keep track of all of my interactions. I didn't keep track of what exemptions I was relying on or what exemptions may have even existed. Fuck. What do I do?
Yeah.
And so you do what a lot of people do, which is to flip the bird at the regulatory agency and say, come back with a warrant, right? Well,
that's interesting.
That's not a good
I know that's what Trent and Shavers did, right?
Yeah, that's what he did.
They came back with not only the warrant, but with lots of other things, as I understand it.
Several prophylactic tools and probes and bright lights. And so, then that leads into the civil action where now you're subject to the jurisdiction of the court, where if you don't behave and you don't give the government what they want, you're subject to contempt of court, you're subject to sanctions, jail time, all kinds of stuff starts to happen just on the civil side. Now you have to know right from the beginning that regulatory agency is creating not only their administrative record, but their civil record and the parallel criminal record. And anything they gather is going to go into all three files. All three files. So the first time you get that letter from any agency, one, you better know that there's 200, 300 hours worth of research by a legal team that's gone into it before you've ever gotten the letter.
Before you get the letter.
Before you get the letter. So when the letter shows up, you're like, they don't know shit. I'm going to hide everything. No.
Yeah.
No, you're already
too
behind.
smart for that.
You're already behind.
Interesting.
You're like months behind. So they already have their file set up.
Oh, so if it takes months, then we might be on a DAO timeline.
We could be.
That maybe we could conjecture that.
If I was on an enforcement team with the SEC, which I'm not, and there was a DAO timeline, I would be spending this time period gathering as much information as I could about all of the victims of the DAO. Now, are there victims of the DAO? Right? Let's think about that. When they hard forked, that allegedly cured that break. So did anybody actually suffer any harm? So really what we're looking at is maybe the unlicensed, unregistered sale of securities by Slockit on the Ethereum network.
Yeah, because they're very unpopular, right? So
right.
They don't have any of the, so they would be a good person to go after, actually.
Potentially, except you've got all the Ether Classic people that had their value diluted by the hard fork.
Yeah, I would say they've lost the most.
So the SEC has to analyze it. You got to get somebody that understands the technology, looks at the technology, looks at the transaction, and says, okay, who was hurt and where and why? And is this the case we want to come forward with to set law? Or do I want something cleaner? Do I want something not so complicated to be the first one that sets the tone for this, right? So...
yeah, it is complicated. Is there something like, does it ever go to like a jury and the prosecutor just thinks like, this is too complicated? Well, the jury is never going to be able to figure out any of this. And like, is there like a cognitive load kind of is there any strategy to that, or is that just totally
I think what a lot of folks don't know is that in the legal construct you have lawyers that gather the information, that build the files, that do all the research, that prepare everything, and that's the team. And then the guy that actually goes into the courtroom, the trial lawyer, he maybe looks at the file 2 weeks before trial, gets trained on what he needs to say, what his arguments are, because somebody else has built the file for them.
Got it.
So that person that goes in, they're just the show pony in the courtroom. Right. Especially when you have a trial division. You've got the support division, the guy that's in the trial division, he's always in trial. That's their job. So, I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a file somewhere that has DAO on it, that has Ethereum on it, that Vitalik doesn't have some kind of file that's open on him. I think that's pretty fair.
And the file, if the file reaches some threshold of completeness, they'll then hand it over to the trial guy and they'll start all this stuff. But by the time they ask you, they kind of just want to see, what you're like, maybe what you try to hide or something at that point, or maybe
they're really reaching out for you to negotiate.
Yeah.
Right, because they already have enough to know that they can get it.
Because they wouldn't even bother if they didn't.
That's right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's right.
That's very interesting.
So that's kind of the that's what you can expect, right? Is they're going to do their job. They're going to go out. They're going to get their witnesses. They're going to assess all the damage. You can't just go forward and say, "Hey, some people were hurt, and so we've got this claim against you." They can't bring a claim without an actual cognizable harm. Some form of violation somewhere. There has to be a tangible thing that the court can get their hands on. Otherwise, the court's going to say, too vague, you really don't have a violation here. Come back when you have something concrete that happened. So, it's all about building a case. And they don't want to come too early, right? They don't want to come too late. So there is a statute of limitations on some things. Interestingly, there is no statute of limitations on an administrative action that has ever been found. So at the very minimum, those types of fines that Eric Voorhees saw, which were, $150,000 for unlicensed, unregistered sale of securities, there's no limitation on when that can be brought. That's...
oh, wow.
Yeah, that can be brought anytime.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's kind of summarize. let's wrap up. We've been going for a couple hours. This has been fun.
Yep.
I mean, so what
Yeah.
what did we discover?
We're almost half as long as a BU episode, so
Right.
that's a good. Yeah. Well, so what I mean, what I
Well,
took away from this. I
hold
mean, I
on.
thought this would be okay.
Before we do that, let's actually open up to 10 minutes.
Let's hear from
of
everyone else.
AMA in the crowd. Well, we're getting tips. That's nice. It's very
Oh,
cool.
there
We're
we
getting
go.
tips.
If you take that money, do you have to represent those people?
No, I don't. I don't.
Yeah, if you don't know who they are.
Let's see if we have any good questions. Guest 200503. Look, just register, guys. Just register.
Yeah, I know.
Asks, is Vitalik going to jail?
Yeah, I don't see that. Here's the thing: I was talking about the popularity. So maybe you tell me like how little that matters. See, he's only popular in our circle too. The jury is never going to have heard of this guy, Vitalik Buterin. They're going to be like, "Who is this guy? We don't know who he is." So
Yeah,
if
you know,
that matters, then no.
making a prediction on if someone's going to go to jail or not. It's such a douchey thing to do.
That is,
know?
yeah, you're right. Especially if you're a lawyer, that's kind of unsportsmanlike,
Right?
right? It's sort of
Ah.
yeah. But will he be seriously looked at, or I mean,
I can't say if he's going to go to jail or not. I can't say that if that's
Got it.
going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't. I think I speak for almost everyone when I say that he, I think he just kind of got it a little in over his head, and I don't know. He's technically like a Canadian citizen, or he was born in Russia, I think. So I'm not sure if he has a geopolitical, get out of jail free experience of some kind, where he's just going to end up in Canada.
Well, so jurisdictionally speaking, that's an interesting question. Anytime any person of purposefully avails themselves of the benefits and protections of the United States, that's the magic language, with sufficient minimum contacts as not to offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. You subject yourself to the jurisdiction of the United States of America. And
I think the summary is, I think that we're really zeroing in on the crowd sale for incompleted work that had to be done by specialists who are not the people who contributed. And you could argue that they made use of the protections of the United States and to the extent that the United States helps maintain
all it takes is one person buying
one
one token from the United States to constitute sufficient minimum contacts. That's it. One token.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. Well, so we probably yes on that question then.
So jurisdiction's not an issue, right?
Right.
It's not an issue. Not only that, but Vitalik came here to the United States and pumped it and pumped it and pumped it.
He did, yes.
Along with several other members.
Maybe
of the
if he
Ethereum
flees back to Russia, though, he'll probably be fine, right? Or maybe he won't be. I don't know. With Putin and Trump, who knows, right?
I don't know.
Maybe in worse shape if he goes to,
right?
I don't know. I mean, so on the other hand, he might be perfectly fine, right? The SEC may just say it was a really weird period. We didn't clarify anything. I don't know. Maybe you totally disagree with this, but they may just say it was really confusing for everyone. And what would really save him is if someone did something even worse, right? And they would say so it might be Slockett that dies, and they say and they might bring him in and say, and then he would say, or he would have written stuff, some deposition or something where he would say that he never trusted those Slockett guys anyway, and they were troublemakers.
In this realm, you don't want to be the one that goes first. Let's just put it that way. Here's a question from Kyle Torpy. What do you think about the contradiction of Ethereum saying it's not an investment and the platform relying on investment to incentivize security? In other words, it doesn't work without investment.
Well, it depends on how you define investment a little bit. If for proof of stake, it does require you to lock up some money, which is interesting. I don't think they will ever I don't know if they'll ever figure that. They'll get that ship to fly. But that's an interesting question, which is that I think Vitalik would have had to know basics of currency competition, which is that his project could only succeed if it somehow I want to say defeated Bitcoin or something, and that's my point of view. And some people don't share that point of view, but I think that not only is it the correct point of view, I think it's the point of view that Vitalik had, where he would had to know that the project is like not really viable as a project unless it just totally usurps Bitcoin, and there's no way to do that competing by playing by Bitcoin's rules. You'd have to switch to a different set of rules. See, I'm not sure. Does mining count as investment if you invest in mining? I'm not sure.
I am going to answer that question when we come back from break.
Yeah.
We've got our break music on.
Emergency research.
Oh, no, I know the answer.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't.
We're going to enjoy Rihanna dancing for a moment. And we'll be back to answer whether or not mining is a security.
All right.
I'm not your lawyer. We're on with Paul. We'll be back. Oh, and I'm not your lawyer. But I could be.